strategic concept looks like. And then what is very important also for this country that has been always supportive of Ukraine and Georgia, that we have also the Black Sea security dialogue with Georgian and Ukrainian foreign ministers. You'll hear from them firsthand what is happening, what's their needs, and also that we are going to tackle the situation in the Western Balkans. So I very much hope that at the end of this meeting you will hear about some very concrete results as well.
Minister, are you afraid that support for Ukraine might actually worsen the situation for Russia?
Look, I think that what has always worked so far, a very firm and strong response to any challenge that Russia is posing. We didn't have that in 2014, frankly. In 2014, when Russia started to occupy Crimea and started its operation in the east of Ukraine, we are somehow a little bit diluted in our response. And I think that it was taken as a weakness. What we did this spring, when there was the first build-up, I think that was the most efficient way how to tackle those issues. Diplomatic, political dialogue, but also prepared to support Ukraine in any way we can, also sending some military equipment. Also, we should consider, and it's not so much NATO's business as EU's business, but also some targeted economic sanctions if there is really steps of aggression. I do hope it's not going to happen. I still think that we need to engage with Russia and we need to send a clear signal. We have plenty of things to discuss with Russia. Unfortunately, Russia withdrew from the dialogue that NATO has had with the Russian Federation for some time, but still I think that the firm, strong response is something that can help diplomacy, not vice versa.
What will be the reaction?
Mr. Minister, despite the EFE being here, despite being condemned over and over and over. So
But we haven't,
is it a deterrent?
Well, we haven't got even close to what could be really strong decisions on what we do in this region. We are discussing those things. That looks like as we are discussing and as we are going to discuss those issues, you will hear tomorrow. But I think that definitely some certain decisions concerning preparing all types of scenarios would be something that you could expect from foreign ministers. We are, thanks God, not defense ministers.
What will be the reaction of NATO if Lukashenko launches a new hybrid attack? So probably it's not the last conflict he organizes. So how can you stop him?
Well, first of all, I think that we already have seen some diplomatic effort working. That's mostly EU business, and European diplomats have been very good at addressing countries of origin. I think also that we need to impose the fifth package of sanctions of EU, and we also discussed this with Secretary Blinken this morning when he visited me in the foreign ministry. But I also believe that there have been also very preventive and good diplomatic effort of putting even the kind of notion of sanctioning so-called third country airlines, and they stopped selling tickets to people who want to come. So effectively, that stream of people has been, if not stopped, then it was slowed down. What we need to concentrate is, first of all, how to help those people who are in Belarus to return, what kind of response we can provide also by diplomatic ways. But when NATO is concerned, I've been talking about that many times. We are not currently talking about consultations at NATO under the Article 4 provisions. If things are getting worse, then we will be asking for those. We will have some concrete proposals, but I will first then talk with my colleagues rather than to make it public.
This authoritarian regime as a European problem, so it will
I think it's actually a global problem. Thank you very much. Enjoy.
will Russia have to pay if it decides to invade Ukraine?
I stand fully behind the Secretary General's line on this. At this point, we should calm down the situation and hold Russia in charge of what's going to happen.
How?
We'll come back to that.
What options are on the table? I mean, what are you going to discuss?
I will not speculate on that right now.
How worried is Estonia that this could move up to your borders? I mean, obviously you don't have the border with Belarus, but you're always vulnerable.
Yeah, but we do have a low tension in the high north, so that's the Norwegian line. Thank you.
Morning, bonjour. Bonjour. Bonjour.
Oh, just a quick question, please.
Just a second. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure. Mélanie Joly. I'm the new Foreign Affairs Minister from Canada. It is a pleasure for me to be here, and obviously the conversations today and over the coming days will be extremely important as we want to reinforce the alliance and NATO in general. Also, I would like to mention that Canada is very much involved here in Latvia. We have a strong contingent of more than 500 people that are at the military base a couple of kilometers from here. Canada plays a leadership role within this mission. It is the most important deployment of Canada outside of our own country, and so we're very proud of this multinational approach within the contingent, because a third of NATO is in Latvia and 10 nations participate to this contingent. So et je peux parler en français s'il y en a qui le désirent, mais essentiellement, on est extrêmement fiers du travail qui est fait par les troupes canadiennes ici. Il y a plus de 10 nations qui, sous le leadership du Canada, s'assurent de faire une mission de dissuasion par rapport à la Russie, qui est à quelques centaines de kilomètres d'ici. Alors, ça me fait plaisir de répondre à vos questions. It will be a pleasure to answer your questions.
Just a question. What help do you expect to provide provide to Ukraine in these times of Russian military buildup in Ukraine? The second, does NATO maintain the diplomatic ties with Russia and Belarus, which stopped to cooperate with NATO, and on what level this exchange of information goes?
Well, Canada is already in Ukraine. We have been supporting and training thousands of military troops in Ukraine. As a country, we're a strong ally to the Ukrainian people, and obviously we're really monitoring this situation very closely.
Minister,
About the communication with Russia and Belarus, so we know there are huge tensions now, and Belarus is one of the problems which are discussed, and Russia is obviously. So, do you have the ways to discuss Putin to Lukashenko?
Well, I think we've been all very concerned as a country, as an alliance, what happened with the use of human beings as a way to put pressure on some of our member states. And in that sense, we have clearly stated that we condemn the use of migrants by the Belarus regime, and we are steadfast supporters of our allies in the region. And of course, when it comes to Russia, it is important that we continue to show the importance of this mission, particularly of NATO here, as we're trying to deter any form of aggression. And we're definitely monitoring the situation very closely in the region and also in Ukraine.
are you
ready
afraid
to support Ukraine with your own troops if there is a Russian invasion over there?
Like I mentioned, Canada is already in Ukraine, and so and we have been training many of the military personnel. I've had the chance to talk with the Foreign Affairs Minister from Ukraine in the past days. I'll have the chance to meet him again, and of course we're very concerned with what is happening, and in that sense we're monitoring the situation closely, and also we'll be having the conversations here how to make sure that we can always strengthen our alliance, but I would at the same time protect the region in
Are you afraid that
Last
if you
question,
support
yeah.
Ukraine further,
I
that
can't hear you,
if you
sorry.
support Ukraine further, are you concerned that this might aggravate the situation, so makes Russia even more furious, and maybe they want to test out how far NATO would actually go?
Well, obviously, we have to work with our allies and our partners. But as I mentioned, Canada has this unique position that we're already in Ukraine, and we already are supporting the Ukrainian democracy. At the same time, in Canada, there's 1.3 million Ukrainian people that are Canadians but of Ukrainian descent, and in that sense, it is important also to send a strong signal. Thank you. Thank you.
see on the inside. And how do you want to meet somebody? You probably how it should come up with something. Yeah, but are you going to first the wait? Yeah, you can come to the room and then wait for her, or do you want me to call you? Yes, when you come outside. Okay, because it's, you want me to wait till she's physically there? Yes.
Just, yeah, over there.
Dear Minister Landsbergis, one question first. So now one of the questions which will be discussed.
Could you tell me from where you?
Belsat TV. So Alexander Popko. One question which will be discussed today is the border crisis, migration crisis with Belarus. So the answer, which is always proposed, are sanctions. But the problem for Lukashenko authoritarian regime is deeper, and also it concerns Russia. So, do you have, as NATO countries, some strategy of democratization of Belarus, of pushing Russia, non-involvement of Russia in this affair? So, do you think strategically about this problem, which creates really quasi-military problems to NATO countries now? Thank you.
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, the answer should be divided in two parts. One thing is that the weaponized migration crisis that Lukashenko is still creating on the borders of Poland, Lithuania and Latvia is a security issue. Therefore, we have discussed the possibility of invoking the Article 4 for consultations between the allies, because we've seen military involvement from the Belarusian side. Therefore, it's a practical problem. On a strategic side, we're seeing as a problem, a growing problem, the military integration between Russia and Belarus. That means that destabilization of the situation that happened after last year's election is now being used by Mr. Putin in order to get his hands on Belarus. And I think that we need to discuss it because from our perspective it could be called as in one part, a creeping annexation of Belarus. Therefore, be it allies, be it Western community, we have to be very clear that we will not recognize it in any sense. And military integration, especially if it happens, if the outcomes are happening on the border of Poland, Lithuania and Latvia, they should be deterred.
Minister, 2 questions, if I may. Do you think that the situation in Belarus and in Ukraine are somehow interlinked? And my second question, NATO always stresses that Russia has to pay a price if it decides to intervene in Ukraine. But what options are on the table? Because as far as I understand, NATO cannot sanction Russia. It's not up to NATO to do that.
NATO cannot sanction Russia, but the countries can sanction Russia. And I think that, first of all, answering your first question, it's obviously not a coincidence that Europe currently is facing one of the biggest weaponized migration cases in its recent history. That was organized by Mr. Lukashenko. And then we have a militarization happening on the Ukrainian border on the same time. I think that Mr. Putin is creating what we call an area of strategic opportunities for him. That means that he basically can either make a move on Ukraine, destabilizing the situation in Ukraine and trying to achieve, possibly stop Ukrainian further integration into transatlantic and European structures. On the other hand, I think that he's seeking, as I answered the question before, he's seeking a deeper military integration, which in effect is basically the annexation of Belarus, using the same military personnel that is now gathered on Ukrainian border. Therefore, we need to be vigilant on both directions that he can take. What messages should we send to Russia? I think that basically the few messages need to be sent. First of all, that eastern flank will be defended. That the countries that are on the border will be defended. We see that there's a deterioration of the security situation, and it will be corrected. Secondly, that the price that Russia would pay attacking Ukraine will be too high for it to attempt that. And third is that Ukraine should be helped on the practical terms. So this is my message to our allies.
What will your message to the Western world if Putin or Russia does an invasion in Ukraine and you have the same picture as 2014?
If it does invade, well, it would change the situation dramatically. On Ukraine, on Lithuania, on Latvia, on Poland. Basically, it is a strategic shift. Therefore, we have to do everything in our power in order to stop this. Thank you.
And I have to.
What would be your message to Belarusian people?
With your permission, I'm going to take the mask off. Good morning. I'm attending today's ministerial representing Spain and on our way to the summit in Madrid, where we will have all of us the strong responsibility of creating a new strategic concept. A new strategic concept that has to look 360 degrees, which means that, as always, Spain will support a strong presence of the alliance in the eastern border, but we will have also to look at the south, towards the south that Spain knows very well. At the end, we are one set of nation, one set of forces, but also one single set of threats, and it's a common threat either in the eastern border or in the southern border. We have also to think the best way to create strategic synergies between European Union and NATO. The world has changed since 1945, but what remains true is that European Union and its natural allies in the world must integrate and work together. Yes?
Dear Minister, does it mean that the NATO countries and the European Union will limit their dependence, reduce their dependency on Russia and on China? So it was stated by the General Secretary Stoltenberg today. So how this reduction will look like?
What we have to do, Europeans and NATO allies, is to decide what's our role in today's world, how we want to engage with people that is outside our alliance and outside European Union, and what are the threats that you are facing and what are the capacities we need. Once we have that we can take our role in the world knowing which part becomes to each one of us. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. I'm deeply concerned with the Russian military buildup along the borders to Ukraine. It's totally unacceptable and something where Russia now must show that they can decrease tension, show transparency and cooperation. And I also want to assure you that NATO and allies stand ready to respond to any aggression with very comprehensive sanctions if Russians will violate any sovereign country militarily. We stand firm by Ukraine's territorial integrity and sovereignty, and we are ready also today to give a clear and strong and united signal from NATO side that we are with Ukraine. Secondly, we are going to discuss also the updating of NATO's strategic concept. And for Denmark, it is very important that we have a strong, vibrant transatlantic alliance, that we look into new challenges of the alliance in all domains. And also in that, we will discuss how we can strengthen NATO politically and militarily. Thank you.
When it comes to Russia and Ukraine, you said sanctions are on the table, but only sanctions? Anything further? And aren't you afraid that this will actually worsen the situation because it would provoke Putin?
No, the only one who provokes the free order of Europe is Putin and Russia. What they are doing with the military buildup along the borders to Ukraine is totally unacceptable, and we have to stand firm, united, and also warn Russia that this will escalate the conflict between Russia and the rest of the world, Europe and also NATO, and therefore we will be ready. If any military aggression is used against Ukraine, we will be ready to respond comprehensively with sanctions, political, economically, something that will be felt by Russia. So we will warn to go in that direction. It's up to Russia to show that they would ease tension, that they will be transparent and they will be cooperative and avoid more conflict in Europe.
Dear Minister, do you have some strategic concept what to do with Lukashenko regime? So it's an authoritarian problem which dates back to 27 years ago. So now it creates some quasi-military problems to the NATO countries. So do you have any answer except for sanctions? So do you think more broadly about this?
Well, I hope and I'm sure today we'll come out of the NATO Foreign Ministers meeting with a strong signal and warning that any intimidation of Ukraine, the military buildup along the borders to Ukraine from Russian side, the behavior which is not transparent, not cooperative, that is something we cannot accept, and we are standing, all of us, firmly by the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, and we will be ready to respond comprehensively with sanctions, political, economically. We will be ready to discuss next steps if any sovereignty of Ukraine is violated.
Are you ready to go further than economic sanctions, with a military option, for example?
I will not discuss what we will do in the open, but I would say for Denmark it is important that the sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine, any European state, is respected. And therefore, today we'll come out with a strong signal. We will stand firm by Ukraine and we'll be ready to respond if provocations continue.
What about the Lukashenko regime, so Belarusian authoritarian regime? What will be your strategic view about Belarus? So you stated quite firmly about Ukraine, but what is the position of NATO foreign minister about Belarus? What will be said today?
Belarus is, first of all, Lukashenko has to stop his hybrid warfare against Europe, where he's instrumentalizing vulnerable migrants. This is something which is inhumane, something we all go against, and he has to stop it. And Denmark will do what it takes to ensure that Lukashenko and his regime stop that type of hybrid warfare. Secondly, we will stand by the Belarusian people. They have the right to free, fair and democratic elections. And as long as it's not going on, that there's no plan, then we'll be ready, as we did with the 5th sanction package, to sanction the people in the regime, Lukashenko and his people, which are responsible for the violation of the rights of the Belarusian people. Thank you.
Thank you.
First of all, Latvian colleague for hosting this council and for this amazing organization. There are important topics on the agenda, the most important being the imminent security challenges such as Russia military buildup in and on the border with Ukraine, but also Belarus hybrid challenges. And I'm sure that we will send a strong message of unity today and unwavering intention to protect our allies and friends in order to provide peace and stability. We will discuss about Western Balkans and the geostrategic interest of the alliance for stable, prosperous and democratic region through reinvigorated EU and the Euro-Atlantic perspective. Thank you so much.
We'll have a chance to talk tomorrow. Thank you. What?
Good afternoon. It's a pleasure for me to be in Riga today. I understand that I can remove the mask. Thank you. It's a pleasure for me to be in Riga today for this very important ministerial. We have a very full and relevant agenda before of us. And we will start our discussion with the most important, perhaps, topic on the agenda, which is the preparation for the negotiation of the new strategic concept of the alliance. It is a document which will set the guiding principles of action for the alliance for the next, at least for the next decade. And as far as Romania is concerned, it is extremely important that this document will make the alliance stronger and more united, because what we need is a powerful alliance which is able to deliver security for our citizens, an alliance which is able to project stability. And I'm glad that in November 2019 I was the first foreign minister of the alliance to ask for the start of the process of negotiation of the new strategic concept. I'm glad that now we are at the stage where we can discuss the operational details. At the same time, another very important topic that we have today is the worrying situation in the neighborhood of the alliance, in and around Ukraine and at the Black Sea region. And indeed it is important because what happens in the Black Sea does not stay in the Black Sea. The Black Sea security is an integral part of the security of NATO as a whole. And there is an impact on the Euro-Atlantic security of the events happening in the Black Sea region. We have to find the appropriate responses as an alliance. We have to be able to avoid the situation where the Black Sea becomes an instrument for projecting malign influences and destabilization, especially for our partners. It is very important to have a high level of strategic situational awareness of what happens on the ground. It is also important that we consolidate the deterrence and defense posture on the eastern flank, including at the Black Sea. To have a coherent, united and balanced approach on the deterrence and defense on the whole eastern flank. We will discuss also about the situation in our neighborhood with our partners tomorrow, with Ukraine and with Georgia, and I will reiterate the full support for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of our partners. We will also discuss about the Western Balkans, a very complex region where both NATO and the European Union have important interests, the strategic interest to have this region as a stable region where we project security and our common democratic values. It is also important, speaking of democratic values, that the strategic concept will focus also on consolidating the resilience of the alliance. It is important that we are able to combat the hybrid threats, which are becoming more and more sophisticated. We can see that the energy security is used. Also, the migrants are being instrumentalized. So we need a sophisticated response as well. We need also to consolidate our relationship with the partners, and of course we need to strengthen the transatlantic link. I'm looking forward to a very substantial discussion today and tomorrow. Thank you.
Minister, a quick question. Do you think that the Bucharest Declaration giving Ukraine and Georgia the prospect of becoming a NATO member at some uncertain point in the future was a mistake in retrospect because it provoked Putin?
In no way I can consider that the decisions of the Bucharest summit were a mistake. Thank you.
Hello. I'm looking forward to this meeting of the NATO foreign ministers It's very important that we stand up for freedom and democracy and take a strong stand against malign actors.
Dear Minister, what will be your response to Lukashenko's hybrid attack?
Good afternoon. Glad to be here in Riga today. NATO's ministerial meeting here clearly shows united commitment of allies towards our collective defense and also, of course, towards NATO's eastern flank. I very much look forward to today's discussions. It is our regular meeting. However, we definitely have to address also current security concerns and, of course, make related decisions in the strategic concept. I hope very much that we will make today important decisions with this regard. I also believe that we have to give very strong support towards Ukrainian territorial integrity. And of course, I look forward to our meeting and session tomorrow together with Ukrainian and Georgian colleagues to discuss how we can support their efforts. Thank you.
Minister, what options are you going to discuss when it comes to Ukraine?
Aber eine nur. Soll ich runternehmen?
Ja, gerne. Welche Optionen liegen auf dem Tisch mit Blick auf die Ukraine? Welchen Preis muss Russland bezahlen, wenn es sich dafür entscheidet, in die Ukraine einzumarschieren?
Also ich glaube, dass die Aufgabe der Außenminister auch in der NATO ist, dass man alles tut, dass es nicht dazu kommt. Wir werden heute einige Fragen stellen und ich hoffe, dass auch in Russland wir verstanden werden, dass es uns sehr ernst gemeint ist. Ich glaube, wir sollten aufhören, jedenfalls zu viel über militärische Aktionen zu reden, sondern schauen, dass wir Minsk wieder in Betrieb bekommen. Das ist, glaube ich, die Aufgabe, der wir uns heute zu stellen haben. Wir dürfen nicht auf Hypothesen arbeiten, das darf man nicht. Aber wir müssen klare Signale geben, dass es nicht akzeptabel ist für die Welt, nicht für Europa, nicht für die NATO, dass militärische Interventionen in der Ukraine stattfinden könnten. Wenn das stattfindet, glaube ich, dann könnten wir gemeinsame Projekte, die Sie am besten kennen, zum Beispiel die mit Gas zu tun haben, würde man alles vergessen. Aber nicht nur das. Die Büros der NATO sind zu in Brüssel und auch in Moskau. Das haben wir nicht entschieden, das hat die russische Seite entschieden. Wir müssen wieder auf ein Feld kommen, wo trotz allen Schwierigkeiten aber ein Dialog wieder möglich ist.
Was können Sie tun, dass die westliche Welt nicht so hilflos aussieht wie 2014, als ja die Russen in der Ukraine einmarschiert sind?
Also, wissen Sie, hilflos ist so ein Wort. Den Dritten Weltkrieg, sagen wir mal, starten, das ist ja etwas anderes. Nein, mit Russland hat natürlich sich vieles geändert 2014. Sie wissen vielleicht, mich persönlich, ich wurde Minister 2004. Es war ein ganz anderes Bild. Es war ein Bild, wo wir Vertrauen aufbauen wollten. Da ist natürlich immens viel zerstört worden 2014. Aber ich glaube auch trotzdem, dass bei allen Problemen, die es gibt und bei allen Problemen, die aktuell zwischen Russland und uns in der NATO bestehen, dass man nicht aufgeben darf, vor allem nicht als Außenminister, dass es nicht explodiert. Das ist unsere Aufgabe.
Was machen Sie, wenn Putin sagt, die Ukraine ist meine Einflusssphäre? Das war
Nein,
immer schon historisch.
Putin hat nicht zu sagen, dass die Ukraine ist ein unabhängiger Staat. Es ist ein unabhängiger Staat und auch Russland muss anerkennen, dass die Ukraine unabhängig ist und dass wir zu verteidigen haben die Grenzen, in der dieses Land vor 2014 existierte. So, ich muss gehen.
Well, it's a bit difficult. Up, like this, okay. So first of all, I would like to thank our Latvian colleagues for organizing this ministerial before next June NATO summit in Madrid. I look forward for today's discussion on the security challenges on the Ukrainian eastern border with exchange of information of all allied forces. As well, it's going to be very open discussion on Afghanistan withdrawal, lesson learned, with points to discuss as well in drafting future strategic concept of NATO, which I think is of utmost importance for allied forces. And I'm grateful, High Representative Mr. Borrell, for having as well the discussion on Western Balkans, as Slovenia is one of the strongest supporters for the European and Euro-Atlantic perspective of the region. Thank you very much.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to be here in Riga. This NATO ministerial meeting is taking place at a very important time. We have a very bold agenda for the upcoming deliberations. First, we are hearing yet again disturbing news with respect to Russian military build-up around Ukraine. We need to discuss that at depth. Similarly, our allies are facing a hybrid attack coming from Belarus, and therefore we have a very important discussion on these two subjects. In addition, and in this context, I'm very glad that we will have an opportunity to speak to our partners, Ukraine and Georgia. I will certainly, on behalf of Slovakia, reassure those two countries of strong support for their sovereignty and territorial integrity. Tonight, we are kicking off at ministerial level our discussion about strategic concepts. This is very important document, an exercise ahead of us, and in view of geopolitical shifts and the new challenges and threats that we are facing, we have to have consensus on that. I'm looking forward to having a discussion about the Western Balkans. We will discuss that together with our partners from Finland and Sweden, and High Representative Joseph Borrell. Western Balkans is absolutely critically important for us, for NATO, for European Union. It matters, the situation there when it comes to our security. And at the end of the day, I'm very glad that I'm here, and I experienced a warm welcome by a Baltic winter, a wonderful scenery and picture of a snowy country. So I thank our Latvian colleagues for hosting us for this important meeting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you got it.
How concerned are you when it comes to Ukraine? What options are on the table to deter Russia?
I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm looking forward to have a discussion with my colleagues. And so it's a little bit early to give answers to this sort of questions, so I will come back to that later.